Well, good morning. We can get started. Go ahead with roll call, Jen, please.
Mike Dolson,
I'm here.
Tom McDonald, Jennifer Finley. Here. Jim Molitaire.
Here.
Carol Langford. Danielle Matt. Here. Bing Matt. James Steele Jr.
Good morning.
Martin Charlo. Len Titis, he is running late. Lenice Trahan.
Thank you, Jen. Jimmy, would you give us a prayer this morning? Would you give us a prayer this morning?
Honor's grandfather. Grandfather, today we call on you to be with us as we do the work we do for our people. Guide us as, there's a lot of different issues with people that on our homeland, and we need to try to help them all any way we can. Just ask that you watch over everybody, keep them safe, keep people traveling safe, watch over the children and the elders. Ask this in your name. Amen. Amen.
Thank you, Jimmy. We do have minutes. From October 1st.
Mr. Chair.
Go ahead, James.
Yeah, thank you. I emailed Abby my correction, and I just had one where I left the meeting later in the day. I asked her to put left the meeting to attend a funeral.
Thank you, James. Motion by Carol to accept the minutes for October 1st with addition and changes.
Second.
Second by James. All in favor?
I
Unanimous, thank you. And we do have an agenda for today. Any additions to that agenda? Carol? And we have 2 walk-ins. Danielle?
I have something.
James?
One will be in open and one will be in executive for my walk-in.
Okay. No, motion by Carol to approve the agenda. Second by Bing, all in favor? Unanimous. Okay. We'll go to the first open walk-in.
For Junior Kayak.
Junior, come on up. Good morning. You'll need to use the microphone. Yeah, there you go.
All this technology today. But, I look at the month, October, November, December, and the holidays that are creeping up on us. I know we have the Veterans Powwow that comes up, and then we have our stick game tournament. And I know that you guys donate to the Veterans Powwow. And so I'm here today asking for a donation for the Thanksgiving stick game tournament at Quatucanook. And I'll ask for an amount of 5,000 if we can do that. It's not nothing, that there's other, I guess, no, I won't, but yeah, I just need to know, if there's a way that we can get a donation for this stick game tournament.
Jennifer, what is our limit on our donation policy?
I sent it to Ruth to let her know that if you guys are gonna go with the annual amount of 5,000 a year, or we have the group donation form and we have an individual donation form as well.
Yeah,
those are
I
the
think
two.
probably, go ahead, Carol.
Yeah, we've done this before, and I think it's, a lot of people seem to come and play, and so we could also ask the corporations, but I think just to get a confirmation to Junior so he knows and he can plan ahead that we're gonna go ahead and do it. And I think if we just reach out to each one of them for $1,000, we could make that up really easy if it's not in the budget. But I am total agreement, and I'll make a motion that we figure this out one way or another.
Motion by Carol that we'll support the stick game tournament, second by Jimmy. All in favor?
Mr. Chairman, one addition to that motion, I would like to add this into the budget so he doesn't have to come in every year and request it.
Yeah.
And then we don't have to find it. It's just
Yeah.
in there.
I'm giving the thumbs up that we're good.
Okay, with that, so I can count on 5,000.
That's what we're
Yeah.
talking
Okay,
about.
cause,
Yep.
I gotta do the poster and that's what's holding me up was how much we're gonna have cause we usually have an added purse.
Jennifer?
And
Can we
that'll,
have Junior go see Greg Spar or Ruth Swaney so they can get the information of who it's getting made out to and all the information
That
on it?
would be good. Can you meet with Greg or Ruth?
yeah, I can, yeah,
Cool.
I'll do that. Okay, appreciate it. Thank you.
Thank you, Junior.
Yeah.
And the next one will be Christy Ashley, and she wants executive.
Good morning, Len. We'll go out of regular into executive. Executive into regular.
One,
Go ahead, Carol.
can you please call Betty Chanette? At the Dixon District meeting, she had a request and wanted you guys to call. I'll make a motion that we proceed with the recommendations of the staff. Tracy, what's your position? What supportive services recommendations for the tiny home additions? I should say modification to the current contracts.
So the modification of the current as well as the addition. We're modifying the old, project that we had, and they are adding a new proposal. Are you just doing the modification? Those two things, are you making the motion on both of those things is all I'm asking. They're proposing and adding the folks that were on the waiting list. The actual modification was to sell some of the originals to purchase bigger. That was the major modification. And then, well, okay, there's two parts of it, and Carol, yeah, just wanted to clarify that. Got a motion, and Jimmy, you were second. Any other conversation before we vote? All in favor? 1, 2, 3, 4. James?
Yep.
James in favor, so we got 6-4. All opposed? I've got Danielle and Len opposed. Motion carries. Thank you. We're ready for Tammy Matt. And James and Danielle will get you before we're done today, so.
Good
Morning, Tammy.
morning.
So I was just looking at this and actually Yvonne has the wrong date on this request. So what I'm coming for, a couple of requests for change of duty. We have our mass flu COVID drive-through clinic coming up on October 16th. And it'll be over at the Joe McDonald parking lot. We're running it as an emergency preparedness exercise and drill to test our plans and test our response, and our ability to get as many people through as we can in a short amount of time. And so we're still short some volunteers mostly for traffic control. Our safety officer that we have for the event has requested more people than we have on our schedule. So the first change of duty is to be able to offer change of duty for employees that are volunteering for working the event. Right now, we have mostly tribal health employees, and Joe has already given them internally that authorization. But since we're coming up a little bit short, we're hoping to be able to get a few volunteers from other departments within the tribe to volunteer and kind of see what it's all about. And hoping that we can do a change of duty for them so that they don't have to take PTO to volunteer.
Motion by Lynn. We don't know specifically who they are right at the moment.
No, not yet. No.
Motion by Lynn, second by Jennifer to approve the change of duty for volunteers for the flu and COVID-19 vaccination mass
Okay.
event.
Perfect. And then the second,
Uh,
oh, go ahead.
All in favor?
So,
Unanimous. Got to get that part.
okay, got to get that part. Yeah, sorry. The second part of the request is to request a 1-hour change of duty with supervisor approval for employees who are wanting to get their flu or COVID vaccine at the event so that they can come through and take advantage of it being just across the parking lot.
Jennifer? Motion.
Oh, and we don't have anybody. Oh. Yeah, and she's not able to do it tomorrow, and I'm not able to cover tomorrow either, so.
So we have a motion by Jennifer, second by Bing to approve a 1-hour change of duty for anybody that will go get a shot
Mhm.
at the mass event. All in favor? Unanimous. I hope, James. I think we're good.
Okay, sounds good.
Thank you, Tammy.
You bet. And I will see if we have anybody available for tomorrow. Yeah, we were talking about that last night at Harvest Fest and just everybody's scrambling. Thank you.
John Wheeler is on Zoom.
Morning, John. You're up. John Wheeler. John, are you available? You're on. There you go.
Yeah, I'm just having a hard time there getting sound.
Yeah.
There we go.
Morning, John.
Morning.
Go ahead.
Yes, I'm here to request that we not extend, but renew a contract with make sure I get it right here, Moving Mountains Therapy Center, and they would be directed by Tribal Health Department. They have been working out of Ronan, doing the services there for us. And it's been a half a day, and we'd like to also increase that to a full day. And the amount I put was 275,000 and would not exceed 357,000. since it's, we're extending the services.
Questions? Go ahead, Danielle.
How many people are they providing services for?
We had for our last stats from 12/1/23 to 6/30/24 was 564 completed.
So the last contract was for 275,000 and this one will be 357,000, you said?
Yes. And the amount that we actually spent was 195,000.
Oh, okay, they didn't actually spend the 275.
No. Yeah, it'll be 195,945 was what we actually spent for the last contract.
Any other questions for John? I would entertain a motion to renew this contract. Motion by Danielle. Second by Carol. All in favor? Okay,
Yeah, yeah.
unanimous.
Thank you very much.
Is there anything else?
No, I think that's good.
Well, thank you, John.
Thank
You have a
you.
great day. Casey, come on up. Morning.
Good morning. Thumb up, Chip. Squex Ukisukiukit, Mr. Chair and members of council. Good morning, everyone. The issue I have for you today is on pages 25 through 36 in your packet, if that is still current. So the issue that I would like to bring to your attention today and is to request non-competitive negotiation with Aquatic Informatics for a not to exceed, and that is the company that provides our tribe's hydrologic database. So for context, this is the software that our tribes use to collect, store, and analyze all of our water, surface water data. We've been using Aquatic Informatics since 2015, and we've been continuing to look at some other software solutions, but Aquatic Informatics to this day remains just the gold standard for providing this software service. It's utilized by virtually every agency we work with, including the United States Geological Survey, which is the gold standard for surface water measurement here in the United States. So with that, we would like to respectfully request the Tribal Council approves entering into non-competitive negotiations with Aquatic Informatics for the next 5-year period for a not to exceed value of $280,000.
Go ahead, Len.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman, members of the council, and good morning, Casey. You know, I've always, when I see these kind of contracts come in, what I would like to see in the future is other kinds of collaboration that we have with these companies. For example, internships with our tribal members. Or to see if they're even hiring, if there's a possibility to hire our tribal members to work, especially when they're obtaining data about our water. You know, I think it would be good if we can have part of the membership involved in that part of the process. And I support this. You know, I support this. I understand the importance of it, but in the future, if you could include those discussions when you're negotiating with these consultants, that we would like to see other types of collaboration like that. So just my thoughts. Thanks, Casey.
Good, Carol.
Yeah, I'll make a motion that we proceed with the recommendations of the department and go with a non-competitive negotiation or aquatic informatics in company.
Thank you. And do we need to include the not to exceed value of 280,000?
Jennifer? Second by Jennifer. Junior, you have a question?
But non-competitive.
They mean that this company probably is providing services that no other company actually gives. And so it's not worth even asking for other bids out there because this is such a specialized software that's used for this analysis.
Happy to
Casey?
speak to that too. Yeah, thank you. That's a good question, Junior. So there's really two leading companies right now in the world that provide these services. So in 2015, we actually got a trial from this company and from another company called Kisters, and we used their software internally. And this one was just the hands down winner. Un- We've been working with Aquatic Informatics since 2015. So they provide the services. So they have cloud-based storage, things that we're able to utilize there. And we do all of the analysis and data collection in-house here with the tribes. In addition to programming the website, that's done by our tribal members and tribal employees. Thank you.
All in favor? James?
Yep.
Unanimous. Thank you, Casey.
Thank you, Mr. Chair, and thank you very much, Representative Teeth. I appreciate those comments, and we'll certainly make those part of our conversations moving forward.
Go ahead, Carol.
If nothing else, they could at least provide a contribution to maybe the powwows or the language program. That's always another consideration. I know if we can't get people in-house to work with them, then there's other opportunities they can certainly give to.
That's a great suggestion. Thank you, Carol.
Go ahead, Casey.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I had a couple minutes to think while I was in the lobby. So just three things that I wanted to mention very briefly. And that is the compact implementation technical team continues to advance that off-season stock water mitigation package. And so I'll be submitting a council agenda request so that I can give council a full update on that in the next couple of weeks. We are looking to have an Arley community open house to present on some of the projects that we've been working on in the Jocko Valley, including the Jocko pipelines, Jocko K Canal, North Fork of the Jocko, and others. So we've tentatively set a date of Monday, October 21st, and we will be bringing that back to council in addition to advertising that in the Charcusta. We'll reach out to Tony and Sadie and get that advertised to the membership so that folks can come down and we can present on some of our projects and answer any questions that the membership might have on that. And the final note is that I know that probably multiple of you worked with Wade Iron from Dowell throughout the years. Dowell was a big part of the tribe's team in the water compact negotiations and in our water rights settlement. And Wade Iron played a leading role on Dowell's team. He is at the end of his career and he is retiring. So he is going to have his retirement party, I believe, October 15th or 16th. So we'd be happy to get that information out to folks. I know Seth personally worked with Wade for a number of years, and so he's going to head down there and be present at that celebration.
Thank you, Casey. Jimmy's got a question.
Yeah, Casey, I might have missed it. You're gonna have that meeting in Arley on the 21st, and it's gonna be at the community center?
Yes, sir.
And what time?
We are looking, we're currently setting up that agenda right now. I think what we're looking at doing is maybe an early afternoon field trip, somewhere around 2 o'clock. Please don't hold me to that, but
Yeah.
Early afternoon field trip to go out and look at some of these projects on the ground, go and look at the K Canal and give people a tour of that and explain the facility, see how far we can make it up the Jocko, then come back down to the community center, potentially have a dinner and some displays for folks so that we can talk to them about the projects and answer any questions they may
Good.
have. So late afternoon into the evening.
That sounds good, because I've got a lot of questions from people that don't understand it, that you're gonna have a lot of questions that they're gonna have someone explain the pipeline project and who it's gonna benefit more than, because I've had questions about the local rather, you know, as where it's going. So that'd be great to have that. Thank you.
Lynn?
Casey, can you explain to us again in simpler terms on why BIP is not obligated to provide stock water in these late fall months? What is?
Yeah, absolutely. Thank you for that question, Representative Toothey. So the reason that FIP is not required to provide stock water is that was part of the settlement negotiations. So when Tribal Council negotiated the water rights settlement, I understand that it was very important to Tribal Council to be protective of our natural resources, including our fisheries. And one of the most sensitive periods of the year is the fall months. That is, it's a spawning time for bull trout. And so it is very challenging for fisheries and aquatic species to have water diverted from the streams at this time of the year. So that is part of the reason that Tribal Council sought to have the curtailment of off-season stock water deliveries from the FIP. Part of that negotiated agreement was that there was a recognition that it would impact folks. And so the tribes sought a contribution from the state of Montana. They agreed to contribute $55 million for several initiatives. One of those would be a mitigation package for those folks that were affected by the curtailment of off-season stock water.
Okay, and that's the funding that they're still holding on to, correct?
Yes, sir. That's $4 million. And so those funds are administered through the Compact Implementation Technical Team. And so the CITT, I'm currently the tribe's representative on the Compact Implementation Technical Team. So we've been working for the past several months to put together a mitigation package for those users who would be impacted and what that would look like. So what we've settled on is a competitive grant program so that folks can self-identify and be eligible for these funds in order to put those mitigation measures in place and develop those off-season stock water solutions.
Okay.
And I'm going to submit a council agenda request so that I can give you the full update there.
Okay.
Just
right.
you know, just to tease it, we're in the final. We've been working with lands. We're going to work with legal. We've been working with the other members of the CITT. We're hoping to have that grant process open in November, December, and then close it in January. Lots more details to come. I'll give you the full update.
Okay, thanks, Casey.
Thank you.
Go ahead, Bing.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Casey, these funds that you're talking about, these are for the wells and stuff that they can use get water for their stock?
Yes, sir, that would be correct. So there are several solutions folks could look at. They could look at developing wells, like new wells. They could look at adding on to an existing well if they had a well for domestic, but they still had water available every year. They could put a new water right on there and purpose it for stock. If they have springs on their property or on their lease, they could develop those springs and use those for stock water. And there would also be the option to utilize surface water if there was surface water available nearby to either develop that for stock or to deliver it to a point of use that stock would be able to utilize.
The surface water you're talking about is pretty much going to be gone though if they dry up those canals and whatnot, right?
Potentially. So if folks were near either a perennial, a year-round or a part of the year source of water, maybe a creek, stream, not the ditches, but a creek or a stream that runs year-round, there would be a legal availability for them to utilize that water for stock. So perhaps that could look like running a pipe or a delivery system from that creek to a point of use for the stock.
Jimmy, then Lynn.
Yeah, Casey, we're gonna, Meg and I are gonna plan a district meeting, and we're gonna, got questions about all this kind of stuff that you're talking about. Who could we have come to that meeting?
Uh, Thank you, Jim. I'd be happy to come to that meeting and present on this. I anticipate a significant amount of outreach before that grant program goes live and while that grant program is live. And that's, I'm certainly happy to offer myself up to come and present at any district meetings, tell folks about the projects, tell people about the grant program,
Yeah.
talk about some of the projects that might be developed, and just generally answer any questions that folks might have. And if I don't know the answer, try to get the answer
Okay.
for them.
Sounds good, thank you.
Thank you.
Go ahead, Lynn.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman, and thank you for that information, Casey. You know, I just wanted to make a quick comment here about this stock water issue because the funding that that was available to address this particular issue, the state of Montana continues to hold that from us. And it's just frustrating that we are allowing the state to dictate to us. And because this is a federal law that says this will be the contribution to our water settlement. And I just want to see this council be a little bit more stern with the Gia Forte administration moving forward, because if we allow them to do this and Gia Forte administration gets back in there, well, one more term, who's to say what else they're going to do? You know, so I just want us to start, even if we all have to go to Helena again. I'm not sure what the outcome of the last meeting with the lieutenant governor. I was unable to attend that one, but it's, yeah, I just don't like the way that they have disrespected us, continue to disrespect us, and we don't respond. That's just yeah, it's just frustrating to see. So.
Carol?
Yeah, I just want to say, as an elected official, there is no way I'm going to let any of our tribal stock egg people get injured. And I think that's where you guys are at too. So I think that's the bottom line. We protect our own. And so whatever we need to do it. And so that's what I think, to reassure people that, hey, we're not just going to let you fling in the wind. We're going to get you through this. And in the end, you'll have water, because they don't get into this business because probably because they've done it all their lives and their parents did it and their parents before them. So I'm certainly not one that's going to just let people go. Because I know, when Charlene Pettit, she was very good down at that meeting, she's pretty stern and strong. And when I heard that message, I thought there was no way she wanted to let her brothers get injured. And so I thought that's a mission of the whole council. None of us want any of our producers injured. So that's where we're at, and that's how we'll handle it, I believe.
Casey, do we have an inventory of what stock users have that water?
We, yes, so before our previous update, we did get a list from Tribal Lands of potentially impacted folks. So we do have that available. I'm not sure if that was distributed to council before the meeting, but I know that Lands has that available.
I'm glad to hear that. And then a clarification. The payment from the state is, my understanding, is not actually due until December 25. Is that right?
That's a good question. So the state of Montana agreed to contribute $55 million, and getting that full contribution is one of the steps necessary to reach the enforceability date, which unlocks the other use of the settlement funds. So my understanding is that your tribal legal department is still working very hard with the state of Montana to get that $55 million fully appropriated and allocated. In terms of the stock water funding, I've been assured that the state does have that money in the bank ready to go. So they're ready for this particular program. I know that legal and the state of Montana are working on getting the other 50, the remaining funds of that 55 in place. And I can't give an update on that, but I know that that's a very active topic.
Go ahead, Lynn.
You know, that was the other comment that I heard in the past about when that funding is due. But the thing about it is the governor sat at the same table with us and looked us all in the eye and said, I got that approved. The budget is approved, the allocation is in the budget. And once that's passed, we were gonna get that over to you. And yeah, so here we are 2 years later, still waiting on their terms. So that's what I am in disagreement with. I just lost trust. You know, there was a lot of trust that was built and that was people worked hard to earn that trust in this water settlement agreement, and these people don't have no consideration for that at all. So anyway.
Thank you, Lynn. Easy?
Yeah, I appreciate that. I think perhaps the funding may be a question best posed to your legal team, since they're actively working on that. In terms of the stockwater mitigation program, I'm fully committed to that. And if folks have any questions there, please encourage them to call me. Thank you.
Thank you, Casey.
Thank you for your time. Hope you all have a great day.
Junior? Thank you, Junior. We definitely have folks that are somewhat aware of that aquifer, and we can check in with them. You bet. Bet. Brian, you're up.
Jody is up.
Oh, Jody's up. Oh, Jody's up. Sorry, Jody. Come on up.
Well, es next. Okay.
Good morning and welcome.
Good morning. Thank you guys for your time today. I brought my friend Jenny Mish, and Jenny is from Missoula, and she is a good-hearted person that I feel the universe has brought her into my life. And we have been working on a project for the last 2 years. And as you can see in the background, we are creating a solidarity program. And solidarity implies a broad sense of commitment to well-being. The program will emphasize on living in harmony with the land, with each other, with spirit, and with ourselves. The program will aim to collect monetary contributions in the form of donations from settlers residing in the lands originally stewarded by the Salish, Kalispel, and Kasanka peoples, and primarily in Missoula, because that's where Jenny is and does her work. We will take these donations and gift them as contributions to the low rent tenants that are no longer low income. So they are now median income, which means they don't qualify for our program. So their rent goes to fair market. So then they don't have enough money to save, and they aren't eligible for our low rent or our low income buy down assistance because they aren't low income. So they're stuck. They get stuck in housing because they can't afford to move out, but they don't qualify for the program. So this has been 2 years that we've been kicking around this, how to make this program come together. And we are ready to kick it off, but we wanted to have your blessing and potentially if you have guidance or other support that you wanted to contribute. So we are introducing you to the program. We introduced it to our board on Tuesday, and there was consensus to move forward. We also want to get the input of our elders because although the funds are the tangible part of the program, the intangible part is the spiritual healing that will happen. So people are going to participate in the culture and the history, learning about it. That movement has already begun in Missoula with the Common Good. The Common Good in Missoula has been facilitating a training called Wrestling with the Truth of Colonization. And so there's already a movement, and we want to kind of harness that energy as it moves forward and help it flourish and blossom into a beautiful thing that mends the us and the thems. So it's like a healing process, and that's the intangible part, but that's probably the most valuable part is the healing. So I'd like Jenny to introduce herself really quick, and then we could answer any questions that come up.
Thank you, Jody, and thank you all. Really appreciate, I just want to express respect and appreciation for your leadership. And I have to say, the more that I learn about your peoples, the more respect that I have. And I know you don't know me. I grew up in Arizona. I lived in Missoula for about 15 years. I've done a lot of nonprofit work in my life, mostly service-oriented, doing facilitation and program development and fundraising. I also got an MBA and a PhD and was on faculty at Notre Dame for 4 years at the business school, but it was really not the right fit for me. I'm much more of a community grassroots person, and I've been doing this grassroots work in Missoula now with Common Good Missoula and the Wrestling with the Truth of Colonization. I think there's been about 200 people who've gone through that program in Missoula, and we've got another cohort coming up later this month. So that's kind of the initial group of people that we'll be reaching out to. I'll just say that my own people came to this continent from 1662 to 1900 from different lineages in Europe and brought a lot of trauma with them. They fled trauma, they brought trauma, and they passed it on to each other and to the people they found. And I feel like my life needs to address that because I feel like I'm a lineage holder my whole journey. I've had, professional successes and so forth, but the truth of who I am is somebody who's been healing from that trauma my whole life. And that has brought me to recognize that it's not just one little life. It's like this lineage thing that I carry, and that so that's what brings me. I'm not motivated by guilt. I don't believe. I think it's from it's a vision that I have of wanting a future of repair, and there's a lot that has to happen for that to happen. And it's gonna go, it's not gonna happen in my lifetime, but I feel like I need to do what I can do. And I know there's other people who care deeply too. So it's been just incredible pleasure for me to meet Jody, and she's a gem. She's really just a treasure to work with. And I think we've come up with a starting place for this where we can find out some things, between now and the end of the year, and then build forward in a good way. And I want to make it clear that I'm really following your lead and the lead of the elders throughout anything. But I also feel like it's up to us as guests on this land to take responsibility for ourselves and not create more work for y'all. That it's a relationship building, you know, with trust. So that's what Jody and I have started, and I appreciate your time today. Thank you.
Well, thank you for that, Jenny. Any questions from folks? Jennifer?
Yeah, thank you so much for coming and welcome here. And it's always really moving to hear about people doing really good work like you're doing and who have selfless motivations and who are making the world a better place. And I think, one thing that comes to mind is that one person can really make a huge difference. And it sounds like you're making a huge difference. And, if more people thought like you, this world would be a different place. So thank you for coming here and thank you for the work that you're doing.
You're welcome. Thank you, Jennifer.
Danielle, go ahead.
Jody, Jenny, this is awesome. This is a great opportunity for our membership. And we see it every day, people stuck trying to get into their own home and just to have options. So I'm really looking forward to how this rolls out and plays out. One little critique, I'm looking at the survey in the packet there, number 7. It says just hell yes, it's about time. I don't know if we want to just change the word hell to oh yes or heck yes. Yeah. It's the first one.
Sorry. So there was a survey for them, and I also wanted for our first-time home buyer education class for those participants to do it. And then the other survey was for the settler side, the contributors, to see what their desire would be as far as the learning and the healing and engaging the relationship side, and then the monetary, what they were comfortable with contributing. And so did you know if it was which survey?
Surveys look great. It's the top one, the solidarity surveys.
Settler.
Starts with
Oh,
how
yeah.
do you feel about living on the land? And it's just question number 7. Everything's great in it. It's just one of the answers. It just says hell.
Oh, yeah,
there.
it was like,
Oh.
hell yes.
And I just
Just maybe
don't
tone
want-
it down.
Maybe heck yes or oh yes.
Okay, we'll
I just
tone
didn't
it
want to
down.
see anybody get offended by that term was on. But
Okay.
everything it's great. So
Okay.
good job. I truly appreciate it.
Okay.
So thanks.
Note taken. We will tame it down.
Thank you.
And then we were also thinking about what the name of the program should be. And with me primarily being exposed to the Salish language, I had thought about Ululim, and that was a recognizable word for a lot of people, and it's easy to pronounce. And then I had consulted with some of my friends who speak the language, and I was explaining about how the intent was for us to come together. And Vance Homegun had told me a word that he said they used to call out when people were, were in the same space, and they would say this word, and it would mean to come together to one, to unite as one. And it's not on here, but it starts with an N. And
It's
it
like
would,
Inqueech, something like that.
yeah,
Inqueech.
and I recognized Inku, and then, so it would be harder to learn to pronounce, and, but it could also open up doors for that education part. And the word meant more than just money, So we have a lot to still iron out, but we wanted to get your guys' blessing to move forward and any guidance that you wanted to give.
Go ahead, Carol.
I was invited to a meeting quite a while ago, and so I'm glad to see that this is still moving forward, and I appreciate you both. And Jody, especially you, because you're keeping it moving forward and it's all positive, and thank you for the survey. But yeah, and Jenny too, thank you so much for coming and meeting the council, and I'm in favor if you need a motion, Mr. Chair. Okay.
The target is awesome. It's those folks that get caught in a real catch-22. You're over income, can't get the program, but still can't make enough to barely keep the groceries on the table. So, love the target. And thank you for that. And, is there any objection to moving forward? I think you have your consensus.
Lamb, Shapasia.
Thank you so much.
Can we go into executive?
You want, we need executive?
No, not at this time. I just wanted to make a quick comment. Carol shared an email with us about an event that they were trying to organize for the kids on Halloween. They want to utilize some part of the tribal property here, on the complex, just from 3 to 5. And, it appears that, maintenance, denied the request. So, this is an event for the kids. And so I think we need to support things like this. And so I would like to just give them permission to go ahead and move forward with organizing the event. And it's on Halloween. So, yeah. So,
Okay. That would be good. We need executive? Out of regular into executive.
Okay, so I think I'll let Frank lead off. We like to start with talking about how we are a statewide coalition that is bipartisan, Republicans, Democrats, third-party advocates. We are not a partisan group looking to help one side or the other. We're looking to put voters first and give voters more choices. But I'll let Frank introduce himself.
Good morning, and appreciate the chance to be here. My name is Frank Garner, and I'm from Kalispell. And if I give you the whole bio, it'll just sound like I can't keep a job. So I'll just start more recently and say I was a 4-term legislator, and I was termed out, and really had to decide what I felt I was the most important thing I could do with my time. And I really feel like it's these initiatives. I don't usually have to take a poll for people to understand that our politics are much more divisive. It's much harder for us to make decisions. As somebody who grew up in Montana and has been involved in public service, I remember the days not where we agreed on everything, but where we had the opportunity to have tough conversations and work on issues together. And that's getting harder and harder. And we believe strongly that the system we use to hire people for these important jobs of governing is a big part of that problem. And these initiatives are intended to address that. So I'm on the board for Montanans for Election Reform, and you can see the folks that are there with us. It's a bipartisan group. My personal superpower is to take credit for other people's work. So it's nice to be involved with them and people like Kendra and the other great folks we have involved in this coalition. But to begin with, it's a group of people who see the difficulties we're having, the divisiveness, the polarization, and understand that we have to make fundamental changes in our system to get back to a place where we can have tough conversations and solve problems.
And just to give you a very short background on me, so you sort of understand who we are, I've worked in Democratic politics for my whole adult life. Frank was elected as a Republican. We're working together on this because we have this shared goal of trying to make elections more fair, less restrictive, and get more people involved in choosing our elected officials. I was most recently on the redistricting commission for the state of Montana, a 5-person commission, and our chairwoman was Chairwoman Smith, who's from this area. And so my background is on that, and I care deeply about a more representative government, a government that better reflects the state as a whole, all of the different diverse, unique geographies of the state. And so that's sort of my background and how I got into this. All right.
And so our stated goals as members of this, not just the board, but this coalition, is to begin with, is to ensure people's right to have the freedom to choose who they want to have represent them. So I'll give you a quick example from in my county this primary season. I was given 4 ballots. I had to choose one of those. And whichever ballot I chose, it made me ineligible to consider anybody else on any of the other ballots, even though they're eligible to be there, right? I don't have the freedom to choose between everybody or anybody that I want to represent me. And that's a big problem because, and we'll show you here in a minute, functionally, we elect the vast majority of our representatives in the primary right now, where the fewest number of people vote. And so if I'd have chosen, for instance, the Libertarian ballot from those ballots, I could have voted for that one person and not considered anybody else. I wouldn't be eligible to. So that really, I'm not sure whose rule that is, but it's not mine to not be able to consider those other folks, but it's the system that we have. And so we really think it's important. We're incentivizing the wrong behavior, and we need to shift it back to where it's more important that we hear the voice of the voter. Right now, special interests are able to take advantage of that choke point in our system in the primary. You use the Eastern congressional race as an example, right? You had the winner got 30-some% in an election where about 40% registered voters voted this primary season. That means about 15% of the registered voters chose the person that everyone knows will be the presumptive representative for that district in Congress, meaning 85% of the people didn't, right? And so we have that system is prime for folks to take advantage of, especially special interests with, since Citizens United and the tons of money that's in our elections. And they know Montana is a pretty cheap date. As it turns out, for instance, in the Senate race, we have the same number of senators that California has, right? It's a big deal.
All right, so to sort of start with some of the problems, and Frank already got into this, but my background is data, so I like to talk about numbers and sort of what he was getting at, the small number of people who are making these really consequential decisions and how we want to shift that power to the general election electorate in November. When more people are voting, more people are turning out, there's more young people engaging. It's a better representation of who Montana is, and we think that's a better system. We think that elected officials will be more responsive. So the problem with our current system is that you are forced to choose a ballot in the primary election, and that limits who you can vote for. And so if there's one race that's really important to you, you have to choose that ballot and stay on that ballot with a party the entire time, even though you might actually want to vote for someone of a different party for your state legislative race and someone else for US Senate or governor or something like that. You don't have that option right now, and that's what we want to fix. Roughly 40% of Montanans don't identify with a party. When you ask them right up front, are you a Democrat, are you a Republican, are you a Libertarian? And roughly 40% of people say, no, I'm none of those, I'm an independent. And they don't have the right to sort of vote that way in a primary election. And even if you consider yourself a Democrat or a Republican, you might at some point in time for some race want to vote for someone of the other party, and you don't have that opportunity right now. And so this system that we have, the partisan primary system, limits competition and participation. Only 40% of people voted in the last primary election, and that basically doubles in November. So twice as many people are turning out trying to have a say in November, and unfortunately, across Montana, most races were already decided in the primary. We're seeing fewer and fewer races that are truly competitive in November because of polarization. And so, we essentially want to fix that. If everything's going to be decided in June when no one's voting, you're going to have sort of bad incentive structures. You're going to have politicians who only are paying attention to those small number of people. And we want elected officials to have to pay attention to more people in their district, more constituents. It makes it vulnerable to special interests. We have more unopposed races. So we have a lot of legislative seats across the state. In 2022, over a quarter of all legislative races didn't have any opponent in the general election. So they had a primary election and that's it. the district is so red or so blue that nobody from the other party ran. And under this top 4 open primary system, we'd be much less likely to see that. You might see 2 Republicans run or 2 Democrats, but at least there's competition. At least people have a choice. So in 2022, across the nation, because we have all of these elections that are so decisive in the primary, they're so tipped red or blue, like one way or the other, that only 8% of US voters effectively elected 83% of Congress. So a really incredibly small number. And when you calculate it for the state of Montana, it's actually even worse. So that's something that I was doing on the redistricting commission a lot. Playing with numbers and looking at, sort of where voters have influence. And in Montana, at the state legislative level, only 6% of Montana voters effectively elected 88% of our Montana House. And we think that's a really big problem. So if you want to sort of understand why we got together and why we're working on these initiatives, that sort of encompasses the main problem that we're trying to fix. We want that number to be much higher. We want elected officials to have to pay attention to more of their constituents and be responsive to them, listen to them. So the solution, CI 126 and 127, and that's what's going to be on your ballot in November. CI 126 is the top 4 open primary initiative. So that opens our primary election to give voters the freedom to choose from all of the candidates on one ballot. You get one ballot in the primary and you vote for whomever you want in every single race. Doesn't matter the party, it's your choice. Up to 4 candidates then who receive the most votes move on to the general election in November, and that means more competition. So a much lower likelihood that you're going to see those unopposed races where there's only one person on the ballot and you have no choice. We're going to see more of that competition in November, and that's when most people are turning out, most people are paying attention and voting. The second measure, the 2 of them can't be put together because one impacts the primary election and one impacts the general election, so they could not be put together because of our strict single subject laws. In Montana, CI 127 is the majority winner initiative. So that says that in the general election in November, because you have up to 4 candidates moving on, we don't want people to win with just 30 or 40% of the vote. We want the ultimate winner to have to get an actual majority, to work really hard to build a coalition and to go out there and talk to people and win with an outright majority. And that one, if CI 127 passes, that will go to the next legislative session, and they essentially have 2 options. They can look at an instant runoff or ranked choice voting, it's called. There are a couple states and there are a whole lot of municipalities across the country who use that system. So that requires you only to have to go to the ballot box once and make your decisions, or a separate runoff. But either way, the ultimate winner has to get an outright majority in their whole district.
So I'll go into some of the details, and I appreciate Kendra covering the math because my degree's in sociology because I was promised there would be no math. But I like to talk particularly about some of the primary things that CI 126 does. First, it puts all candidates on one ballot. So now instead of having that 4, I'd have one ballot in front of me that gives me the choice of everybody that has qualified to be on the ballot. And it is my choice then who I choose to pick to represent me, regardless of party affiliation. Now we say competition is a good thing, right? And then it drives better outcomes in everything we do except politics, right? The thing that affects probably every corner of our life. And so one of the main incentives here by having top 4 is having that ability to have more competition. Now, it should come as no surprise that some of the folks in power aren't excited about the possibility of having more competition in their races. And you don't have to take my word for it. You can take theirs and look at how hard they've worked to keep some of these ballot initiatives, including ours, off the ballot. How hard they've worked to even keep the people of Montana from making that choice. Because what we do doesn't change it. All it does is gives you the opportunity to decide what system you want to use to hire the people for these important jobs. And yet we've had 4 significant court battles. Thank goodness 2 that have gone to the Supreme Court, and we've been able to win all of them, but that's some of the work we've had to do just to get to this point to give Montanans the right to choose. And on CI 127, again, I think Kendra did a great job of explaining some of the benefits. For me, as somebody who's been there, I was always in a fairly competitive district, and so I had to run both in the primary and the general elections. I had in those 4-term, 7 contested elections, and so I had to get out and talk to people and knock on doors and go to the go to the farmers market and do all the things, right? I mean, I had to get out and talk to people. I had to build coalitions, and I had to govern more broadly. I don't think it made me a worse representative because of that. And having that competition is something I think we should have an expectation of when it comes to the people who are going to represent us. And I think it's one of the primary things, as somebody who's been there, that is increasingly missing in these uncontested elections that we have in our general elections.
All right, so what are the main effects of these reforms? First, they don't benefit either party. That's why you can have a truly bipartisan coalition that's out there talking to people and advocating for these. The makeup of the state, how people feel politically, these reforms aren't going to change that. They're simply going to allow, sort of push the competition past that June primary when so few people vote and really put it in November when more people are participating. But the partisan makeup of a district or of the state, it's not going to be changed by these reforms, and that's not what we're in it for. They increase competition. That's exactly what they do. They allow more people to move on to November, so you have more real choice. They undercut extremism and polarization, and that's by requiring people to get that majority vote and build a coalition and win that way, instead of just needing to get enough votes in that small primary electorate in June, which is a more ideological, more extreme group of people. I vote in primaries. Many of you probably vote in primaries, but overall, that makeup is quite different than the district as a whole. And it leads to, serious problems with sort of gridlock and division in the legislature and in our state government. So these reforms change the incentive structure for elected officials. And we think elected officials are going to know that. Many of the people who are going to be elected next month in Montana under the current system will get reelected again if these reforms pass under a new system. Many of the people will stay the same, but we believe that how they govern, how they interact with each other and listen to the voters back at home is going to change. I have an example of that I'll talk about in a minute. Better candidates choose to run in a better system. We're excited about the opportunity for that. Politics has gotten pretty ugly, pretty hard to watch sometimes, and a lot of good people don't want to run because of that. And then just preserves the principles through a constitutional protection. These are constitutional initiatives, and that's why they're going to the people. The legislature who got elected under the current system, they don't get to decide and change the rules themselves. It's going to be up to the people of Montana. We know this works because we're not the first state to try it. Alaska in 2020 passed similar reforms, a top 4 open primary system specifically, slightly different because they didn't have 2 separate initiatives. They had just one, but they now have a top 4 open primary system. And the very first cycle, so after 2022, their legislature totally changed. The partisan makeup overall did not. Overwhelmingly stayed a lot the same. A lot of the same people came back, but the way they worked with one another changed a lot because none of them had to go home and know that their only race they needed to win was a primary. They knew that they needed to represent their whole district. And so they actually formed a bipartisan majority that was cross-partisan. It was Republicans, Democrats, and independents working together to elect leadership, to appoint committee heads, and they got together, they worked out a deal, and they said, we're going to work on energy, the economy, education, the issues that are, most important to, working families, not the sort of controversial issues that are designed to be divisive and cause problems. They said, we're not going to take those up. We're going to focus on the issues that we think are most important. And there were enough of them who said, my voters back home want this too. We want us to focus on the issues that are, sort of less divisive, less extreme, and try to get some work done, even if it means working across the aisle. We're not going to sort of treat each other like enemies all the time just because we're from different parties. We're going to work together. So that was at the legislative level. At the statewide level in Alaska, they also had these really interesting results that are very rarely seeing across any other states anymore because of extreme polarization and partisanship. The entire state as a whole, so the exact same group of voters, elected 3 very different candidates for their major offices. They re-elected Lisa Murkowski, who's one of the more moderate Republicans, probably the most sort of centrist moderate Republican in the U.S. Senate. She was reelected. They elected a Democratic Congresswoman who was the first Alaska Native to be elected to Congress in Alaska, and they elected a really conservative Trump endorsed governor. And so what that really shows, you might like some of those results more than the other. It's a really interesting makeup. But we're seeing it less and less. And what it shows is that when voters were given the opportunity to make more informed decisions about candidates and not just party, they took that opportunity. And so the headline from a news article that's sort of the middle bottom shows that, again, in the very first election, just one time out of the gate, a majority, more than 50% of Alaskans voted across party lines in the primary. So what we aren't allowed to do in Montana, what we can't do right now, they took that opportunity and they went ahead and did it. So it seems like voters liked that. They wanted that freedom to choose who they could vote for in the primary election. I spent a bunch of time as we were sort of building this coalition and coming together to try to figure out if we could get these on the ballot. I spent a fair amount of time talking to folks up in Alaska and asking them about their system, making sure this was something I wanted to get behind and spend my time on. And one of the things I learned is that the Alaska Federation of Natives was incredibly supportive in 2020. They were a big part of moving forward with the initiatives themselves. They felt that elected officials were ignoring their interest a lot of times and could because of their primary system. And they felt that this would, help hold elected officials more accountable to have to, seek their voice, their opinion. And so they were very supportive. There is a repeal effort happening in Alaska now. So there's some people who didn't win under the new system who don't like it. So it's actually going to be on the ballot again, but as a repeal effort. And so recently, and that's what these headlines are, recently the Alaska Federation of Natives came together and unanimously, across all their tribes in Alaska, they unanimously came out in favor of the top 4 open primary system because they believe it's given them more power in the sort of overall state makeup. And then lastly, a couple of headlines, and the Get Out the Native Vote organization up in Alaska has done research on what happened in 2022 to say, was this actually good? Do we think this produced good results? And that's how they ultimately came to the conclusion it was, and that they're going to, work to stop the repeal effort. They like the top 4 open primary system. And a couple of just facts from that I thought were interesting and wanted to bring to you is that voters across the state outside of predominantly Alaska Native communities voted crossover, so like for both a Democrat and a Republican, but for different offices. So did some sort of crossover voting at a rate of just under 50%. That's still really, really high when you think about it, how many people want to take that opportunity. But in predominantly Alaska Native communities, that vote was actually 80%. 80% of Alaska Natives wanted that choice and that opportunity. And so for different offices, basically they preferred candidates of different parties. So a really high rate of people wanting to take that choice. And that was one of the reasons that the Federation of Tribes up there said, absolutely, like clearly Native communities want these, this freedom to vote this way. They took advantage of it when they had it. And then in the primary election, turnout increased. It actually increased specifically in the predominantly Alaska Native communities from 2020 to 2022. So even though 2020 was presidential year, and normally you see more people turning out in presidential elections where there's a lot more going on. We actually saw more people come out and vote in the primary in 2022, correlated with that open primary system. So those are just a couple of facts. We would love to take any questions that you might have, and then we can try to close up. We won't take more of your time than keep anyone late. So any questions?
Are there places other than Alaska that have done this? And is the history only 4 years old?
Yeah. There are other states and other municipalities that have parts of the reform. So there are other states that have majority winner systems, right? So just ranked choice voting or just like a Georgia style runoff where you have a separate election. They have to get over 50%. There are states that have open top two primaries. So the open primary system where everyone's on the same ballot, but only two advance. So those are states like Washington, California. There is only one state that has the open top four primary system that CI 126 does. And yes, and it's in Alaska.
Other questions, anybody? Go ahead, Jennifer.
Just want to have a comment. Thank you so much for bringing this to us and going through all of this data and explaining this to us. I think it sounds really interesting. And I was thinking about this. I thought, well, what would the downsides be to it? And so, thank you.
Thanks for having us.
Well, the representation of 80% in the native population doing crossover voting, it makes sense to me because the people who understand us oftentimes are in different parties and you never know where to find them. So, yeah, I can see that happening in native communities a lot.
Yeah, and one of the things I know that was happening as I was sort of interviewing people and they have the sort of data is that a lot of native communities really supported both Republican Lisa Murkowski and Democrat Mary Peltola. And then those two ended up endorsing each other, even though they're on the other side, you know, the other side of the parties. And so essentially native communities got what they wanted on both of those races. And those were the people who were, you know, going out and being responsive and talking to people.
Other questions?
Yeah, Mr. Chair.
Go ahead, James.
Yeah, thank you. I was curious. Thank you for the presentation. I've definitely voted for, sign these in a petition process and we'll vote for these. I ran for the legislature a couple times for House District 15 and won on our end of the district and lost on the other end. But just a question in terms of, could you elaborate on anything you may have learned from Alaska? And they don't have counties up there. I think they have boroughs, but like here in Lake County, our election for the county commissioner and sheriff and all of that is the primary in June. We don't have any Democrats running usually for local races in the county. And, I imagine that's probably similar in some of the more Democrat strong counties. Do you have any information or experience in your research as to how that affects, some of these local races where we only have one party running for some of the local races?
Yeah, so what they find is that so folks who and just more and more seats across the state are like that, and you have legislative districts in the county that will probably be very Democratic and Republican. You have both, but depending on which side of the line you live on, you might want to choose the other primary ballot so that you have a say in your elected officials. And so essentially what happens when you do that, when you have, say a really red area, it's going to be decided in the Republican primary, is voters who are not quite as affiliated, maybe they're independent or maybe they're Democrat, they either have to choose that other ballot and vote it up and down in every single race, or they essentially don't have a say. They vote the other ballot and then they had no say at all in say your sheriff or your county commissioner. And so their voice is getting lost. And like you pointed out, and they did, they have the same basically the same thing in Alaska, where they have some of these really red districts, really blue districts, and they're not competitive in the general election. And so that changed a lot. They cut down the number of unopposed races. They cut them in half just from one election to the next. So it was 24% of the races had been unopposed in 2020 at the legislative level, and then it dropped to 12. So it was like almost everyone had an opponent in November under this new system.
Well, thank you, Kendra and Frank.
All right. Thank you very much. Appreciate it.
And I'll just close thanks you so much for having us. Thank you to Jordan for being willing to set this up. I know that the tribal council doesn't necessarily endorse in partisan races. You take endorsements very seriously. We wanted to be here to provide, information and education. We also want to build the relationship. We want you to know who we are. If we win in November, we're going to go to the legislature. We're going to want to do education. We want voters to understand the new system. And so we want to be good partners there. But we would also be honored if you would consider endorsing. We would love your endorsement. We have a lot of endorsements across the state from organizations across the political spectrum. We have some chambers of commerce. We have some unions, different organizations who have endorsed. And so we'd love for you to consider that, talk amongst yourselves. And we also understand if you aren't going to take a stance on it, but feel more informed. And we want you to be able to, inform the rest of the people in your community.
Great, Jennifer.
Thank you. Tomorrow we have a quarterly meeting, so it'll be a larger meeting than we normally have. And I would say if you wanted to leave materials here, so
Great.
as people come
We'd love
in,
to.
if they just wanted to know what this is and what it means, I think that would be great if you could
That'd
leave
be
some
great.
materials for people. Thanks.
Thank you.
Yeah, appreciate your time.
Thank you. We'll leave materials and then leave our contact information, and you're definitely welcome to reach out if you need more from us. So, thanks so much.
Danielle, you had an issue you wanted to bring up.
Mine was just a quick trip report from last week. Attended the 10th anniversary of the Buffalo Treaty up in Standoff, Alberta. Very welcoming place to be. Learned a lot, got to network a lot with a lot of people. It was an honor to sign on behalf of CSKT, so thank you for allowing me to go up and represent us. I'm really looking forward to hopefully attending again next year. Made some really great contacts, and I'm working on learning that Buffalo song so I can sing with my dad next year at that. And really want to thank Whisper too. She really represented our tribe well while she was on the trip too. So and thank you guys for allowing me to be part of that.
Thank you, Danielle. Clint?
I have a brief trip report also. So last week I attended the first Wellbriety conference that they've had in the state of Montana that was hosted by the Rocky Mountain Tribal Leaders and the White Bison organization. We had some folks from Elmo that were in attendance. We also had the Never Alone Recovery folks that also showed up. And hey, these types of conferences are getting more popular. We probably had close to 200 people in attendance from Alaska to Alabama. Yeah, it was just it was a really powerful event, I should say. A lot of good speakers, and the question came up on why CSKT can't host one of these. You know, I know that something like that, I know Patuxent wouldn't be able to handle a venue that big, but still, to support our membership or even our community members that are in recovery, These types of gatherings are important, extremely important. And so I think at our next tribal health committee meeting, we need to challenge our staff on how we can put something like this together. I think this would be a service that our members would really appreciate, because it was like I said, it was a very powerful event, and people that are so far along in their recovery, this is extremely important in their life. Especially when you come from the places they've got themselves out of, you know, fighting alcoholism and any kind of addiction is a huge victory for everybody, and not only for them but for the community in general, you know, and family. So I just wanted to quickly mention that, because I'm going to start asking staff about what it's going to entail to host a Wellbriety conference. Because I do know that the Tribal Leaders Organization would provide funding. So, in addition to that, they also agreed that they would continue funding for the Elders Conference. Because I mentioned to them I wanted to do this on a quarterly basis rather than just a yearly basis. The Elder Abuse Conference, yes. There were I got a lot of comments from people that you know, a lot of them are just happy to get out of the house, and visit with people that they've never seen in a while. And well, you know, we all know today's day and age, nobody visits each other anymore. And so it's just events like this that I think it's really important that we support. So thank you.
Thank you, Lynn.
He left.
James, you had an issue?
Yeah, thank you, Mr. Chairman. I have a issue. I got a call from a tribal member that's having an easement battle with Lake County, and I was wanting to know if I could pass that person's information and phone number along to our legal department to help kind of investigate that situation and see if we could be of some help and maybe report back to us. I don't want to give the name out at this point, but executive, I would be glad to. But basically, she's asking for some help with the easement battle, and wanting to know if the tribes could help with that battle. So, and I didn't have an answer, but I just said I'd bring it up with council and see if we can maybe have the legal department look into it.
This person needs an easement? Is that what we're talking about?
It's a little more complicated than that. Yeah, it's a little more complicated than just needs an easement. It's more like the size of the easement, and the person believes it shouldn't even be, believe it should even be under the control of Lake County. So it's a little bit of the county exerting over potentially individual tribal land, so tribal member land.
Do you know if that land's in trust?
I do not. I think it is. I believe it is. Her and I've been playing phone tag last couple days, so
Then that will make a difference. But yeah, if we can get the specifics, we can probably get that into legal and find out if they can help.
okay. Once I touch base with her, I can follow up with y'all as well.
Thanks, James. Anything else? Carol?
I wasn't sure if when Len brought the issue up with the trunk or treat. Was that for Carla Trahan? I mean Carla Trerosian, I'm sorry. Okay, so are we gonna allow it, or?
I don't know that we had a vote on it, but it didn't seem that there was any opposition at all. So.
Yeah, there was an email, but I didn't even get a chance to read it. I just sent it, so, because she was requesting.
But we didn't really have an objection to
Okay,
use.
she needs council action according to Lisa, the facilities person, I think.
Okay. Well, if
Okay.
they're asking for
All right,
action,
that's
let's go ahead
action
and give
enough.
it to them.
That's action enough.
Consensus?
Chair,
Okay. Go ahead. Martin?
thank you, Mr. Chair. Sorry, I put it in the chat. I don't know if it was just for addition to the names being, or people being honored for years of service tomorrow at quarterly. I was just wondering if we could add her name to that list.
Jen, is Lynn Hendrickson on the list for 25 years? That's what Martin's got in the chat. Tired?
When I talked with Renee, she's only going with what she's received from the personal action forms. So she will probably be on the next quarterly, but I'll double check with Renee before the day's out and ask if I can add it. Because I've been getting other names that she's telling me to add for the 10 or plus 10 to 15 years.
Okay, thanks, Martin.
All right, thank you.
Lynn?
So earlier, I suggested to council that we acknowledge the land donation that we just heard here previously at the quarterly. What I did not understand, or what I did not catch, is this transaction is based contingent upon their demise.
Yeah.
Okay, so we don't own it yet, right? So I just think that maybe we're just jumping the gun for telling the members that we own this property, which we don't yet. So I think maybe we should probably hold off on making that announcement until we actually have ownership of it. But right now, it's just contingent.
Yep, it is.
So my bad, I jumped the gun.
Anything else? Okay.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I too have a follow-up on our meeting when we went to Tulalip, Jimmy and I, for the mid-year conference. There was only a couple of meetings that we had down there all that time. First day, we got there on Monday. I had a meeting probably about, I'd say 4 or 5 hours, if that long. Second day was about, maybe 3 hours, 2 hours, something like that. But that was probably the worst conference that I've been to for a mid-year conference and gaming since I've been, as a gaming board member. There was not a heck of a lot of anything that was taking place down there. So, yeah, I was pretty disappointed in that meeting. Usually we have some things that we vote on and act on down there, but we only had maybe about, altogether, maybe about 4 or 5 total in 2 days. And I was really disappointed on it, Ernie Stevens, and he likes to make a big show, so we have to watch him for 2 days. But yeah, it wasn't a very good conference at all, I didn't think, but and there's, I don't know, there was probably about, I'd say probably 25 maybe board members total. The rest of them never showed up. But yeah, there wasn't hardly any, it was a very good meeting. I wanted to let you guys know that. I didn't think much of it, and I don't know how Jimmy feels, but that wasn't very good. Just to let you know that. Next year I'll have to really look at the agenda before I go down, because I'm not going to go down if there's something like that again, because really I feel like I wasted my time. You drive all that way to Tulalip and get down there and expect to have a good conference and not there, so. Then you get down in that part of the country, it's a rat race, over there. So, yeah, I just really didn't think it was conference that we usually have. We had a pretty good conference that mid-year, but this wasn't. Nothing
Is there a possibility to make comments about that to the folks that organized it?
Well, Ernest Stevenson, he's the one that and his partner, that kind of dreams that stuff up, so. Yeah, it's just, yeah, it wouldn't, yeah.
Jennifer?
I have a feeling that happened with gaming because Bless was going there for the training, the class 3 for his certification training. But at the same time, there was a gaming meeting at Palm Springs for the same classes going on down there. So Les picked Tulalip because it was closer instead of riding the plane to go down there. So it sounds like all the LLC people went down there because they had the big production and all the board meetings there. And this guy wanted to keep it here. And some of the Tulalip people here went to Palm Springs, and the Palm Springs people came here to Tulalip. So it was, I think that was part of the mess up. So that's why we didn't see nobody else there except just Les on ours, because all of our commissioners went down to Palm Springs at the same time.
Les was at a commission meeting down there. He has had some training to do down there, and but we didn't have to attend that, because the board members have to attend that commission. So yeah, it's yeah, I didn't think it I didn't think it was worth it.
Yeah. Thank you, Bing. If nothing else? Junior, go ahead. What? You got a minute or two.
At one of our Kootenai Culture Committee meetings, I think Leonard was there, and I think Carol was there. It was back a few months, the Natural Resource Department came up. This was a while ago, and they talked about the moose. And what they talked to the elders about was like a format, what they do with Ferry Basin. That's what they talked to us about. And we said, no, we don't want that. And we thought everything was fine and good. And I don't remember if they brought this up to us, because I don't remember it. But after they came back, they said that now they have the moose in a hunting season. And what that did to me was I believe that my traditional ways, my cultural way, it has been violated. And it's just not the moose. It's elk, deer, moose, all the animals that we have today. They're used often, very often with the Kootenays. And I'm just speaking for us. But they're used and they're told, go get this, go get this, go get this, go get this. And so I feel that this was, well, it violates my right, my traditional cultural right. If I'm told to go get something from the moose in this hunting season, I asked this question, and if I went and got a moose, would I be violated? They said, yeah, they would have to take me to court or wherever. So I hope you see where I'm coming from. that my cultural and traditional ways is being violated by this rule. And like I said, I can't remember them bringing that to us. Because that would have been a definitely no from us. Now I find out that moose is in a hunting season from here to here. And if I practice my traditional ways, if I'm told to go get a piece of a moose, if I get it, I'll get in trouble. So what I'm here today is to ask that that be turned around. Because I'm being violated. And that's what I'm asking of you today, to turn that around.
Junior, I need to look at it harder, but I think there is an exception for a use like you're describing. I don't think they would take you to court or anything if you were directed in your tradition to actually get a part. I think there's an exception allowed for that. I'm gonna have to look and make sure though.
A whisper, I think I asked that, and I don't know if Carol and Leonard was there, but I asked that and they said they would have to go by their rules and prosecute. I don't know if that's the right word, but just like me going up here and get a bull moose out of season, I'll get in trouble. That's the same thing. So that's what I'm asking today, is that be looked at and turned around, because I am being violated. My traditional ways is being violated. I stated I love our traditional ways. I love our ceremonies. I live for that day to day. And that's slowly being taken away from me, from our tribal government, from our tribal departments. They're taking that slowly away from me. And there's many other instances where this takes place today. That's what they're doing to me. I'm not just me. There's a lot here that practice these ways, and that's what it's doing. But I can speak for myself. I can speak from my handful that do these kind of ceremonies. It's affecting us. I never thought that I would have to come forward and discuss it in this manner, this way. But, that hurt me when they came back and said a moose hunting season. That hurt me. So I need you to take a really good look at it. And I want to hear from you a comment. What do you guys think about that? You think I'm being violated?
Go ahead, Len.
Well, thank you, Mr. Chairman, and, yeah, Junior, thanks for bringing that issue up again. I know at the time that, NRD was bringing in their hunting regulations proposals, I know there was a lot of in-depth discussion in Elmo. I remember that, and a majority of the people in there at the time were totally set against any kind of regulation, any kind of hunting regulation, not just for moose, but just for big game animals in general, because it was felt that their treaty right was being impacted. But I need to take a look at the council action, because I remember when we were voting on that and it came up to moose, the regulation with moose, I think it was voted against. I remember James and I voted against, but I can't remember exactly what that action was and if it even passed. It seems to me that it didn't pass, but I need to clarify that, okay? Because that was a few months ago. I got to jar my memory. There was a lot of things that happened because the proposed hunting regulation every year is a contentious issue and understandably so, rightfully so. And it's always good to see our members step up when they see that their treaty right is being talked about and actions are being, and things that might impact them. It's good to see you guys get up and speak up about it. I mean, because we need to hear that. But yeah, I need to find out exactly what the action was on moose specifically. Because I don't recall it right now, Junior.
Yeah, I know there is, and that's to any female when they're carrying. I know that season there. But I know the moose has a season today, and I don't know if any of you guys should know that, because that's how it was explained to me. There is a moose season, and it's not just when they're carrying the little ones.
Carol?
Yeah, I know all regulations seem like they have a clause in there that talks about the cultural purposes of some things that go on. And so, Mike, I think you're right. We need to check to make sure, and then somehow put that along with the action that was taken on the moose, so it's clear that for these purposes, it's clear that there is a use and it's for cultural purposes.
That definitely, when the moose came up, there was a whole lot more regulation than just the season.
Yeah.
And it had quite a discussion, and going to basic numbers and to what Montana was reporting and all of that about what the population was. Is the season was installed, but I don't think it trumps the ability to have a cultural use. I don't think it does that at all. I think the cultural use is there, but I have to make sure.
Yeah, well, that's what Whisper told me at the meeting, that
Understand, and I'll check.
they would have to, because I'm breaking rights, I'm breaking the law. If I had to do that, and today I still would, because if I was told to do something like that, I'd go do it
I
and suffer the
believe,
consequences, I guess.
I believe Whisper misspoke there, but I have to find out for sure.
Okay, that'd be
Gotta find out
great.
for sure.
That'd be great.
Yeah,
Yeah.
thank.
Thank you, sure. When this moose issue came up, they first wanted to have a drawing like they did in Prairie Basin. And we voted that down.
Yeah.
So we didn't want to have that season like that, like
Yeah.
they have in Prairie Basin, so we didn't have it. But you have to get a permit, because the cows, they close the cow season altogether. You can't kill a cow anymore. Just the bulls.
Well,
So you'll have to get a permit just to
Yeah.
kill a bull.
Yeah.
But I don't know how long that season lasts. I didn't know it would just last from September to end of the year.
Is that the calf, they're carrying the little ones? Is that what you're talking about?
No,
The cow season?
yeah.
Yeah,
Mhm. Yeah.
yeah. Well, that's what I'm talking about. It's in a season, and if I'm told to go get one within the season, what I was told, they would have to go ahead and do their law and prosecute me or whatever. Yeah, so it'd be great to,
We'll check, we'll find that
Yeah.
out.
Yeah.
We'll find that out.
appreciate that.
Danielle?
I just want to agree with what most everybody else said here is I don't think any of us would have put a restriction on moose for any type of cultural reason. I know we did put the season in there. Cultural purposes, like you said, when you can and can't and what you can and can't take. You were taught right. And but unfortunately we have some tribal members who aren't raised in our ways, and the season, I believe, was put in place to hopefully prevent some of that trophy hunting and to make sure we've got a population for our cultural people to go hunt. So you shouldn't have to worry about anything for any spiritual or cultural belief to go do what you need to do that's necessary for you. So we'll look into it, and if we made a mistake somewhere and it's not right in the print, I think you've got all of our support here that we'll go fix that in the regulations to make sure it's very clear that there's no consequences for cultural hunting, for anything.
Yeah, well, you just said there is a season. So that's what I'm talking about, that season. And it's not the season where they're just carrying the little ones. I believe there's a season that was put all together. And I can't remember how long that season goes, but it's not just carrying the little one. There's a season there. I can't remember how many months or whatever, but there's a season. And that's what I'm talking about. If I have to go get something within that season. But I never did hear what you spoke about. That if I was directed to go get one within, you know, the season, that it would be okay. I don't
Okay.
remember seeing that.
I think if you're directed to go get it anytime, you can go get it.
Yeah, well, I'd like to see that wherever it's
Yeah.
written. Yeah,
We'll check into it.
yeah, okay. Appreciate it, thank you. Yeah.